Welcome to the Sheckler Spotlight, where creativity meets purpose and conversation goes deeper. Join host Harrison Sheckler as he sits down with inspiring guests from all walks of life, artists, thinkers, musicians, and everyday heroes, to explore the stories that shape us, uplift us, and connect us. Now here's your host, Harrison Sheckler.
Hi, I'm your host, Harrison Sheckler. Today's guest is someone who lives full throttle, 8 seconds at a time. He's a world-class bull rider, YouTube personality, star of the Netflix series How to Be a Cowboy, and the unmistakable face behind Rodeo Time. Whether he's teaching rookies how to ride or keeping the cowboy way alive for a whole new generation, Dale Brisby is the real deal, with a wild sense of humor and a heart for the Western lifestyle. So saddle up. The spotlight is now on you. Dale Brisby, welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, it's great to be here, Harrison. You really rolled out the red carpet, and I appreciate it. It doesn't surprise me because I am the world's greatest bull rider, not just world class, but the world's greatest. So, and also the most humble. I'm glad to be here.
It's an honor, and so thank you for your time today. I'd like to start. In your own words, what does it really mean to be a cowboy?
Oh, for me, I've always been a cowboy. I invented riding bulls with one hand. I was full-time rodeo cowboy at 9 years old. And so, it was second nature. So it really just depends on how you want to use the word and how you want to define the word, because C.S. Lewis talks about the word gentleman. And at one time in Europe, it was referred to as like a man of a certain age. And maybe there were certain characteristics that literally defined a gentleman. And it was like a group of men, and you either were a gentleman or you weren't. But then people started to attach, they started to use it as like a compliment because a lot of those men were also kind and very well mannered. And so they'd be like, ooh, he's really a gentleman. Well, it's kind of like saying, he's really a plumber. Well, you either are or you aren't. But like, no, he's a plumber. You see what I'm saying? Like, it's either a black and white description or it's a compliment. And so that's kind of where we're at with this word cowboy, because a lot of people throw it around as if it's a compliment, but depending on how you're asking it, if you mean it as in you're either a plumber or you're not, then what it means to be a cowboy is you make your living horseback, and you are, you're horseback, and you're dealing with cows. Maybe it means you own cows. Maybe, there would be kind of this society would, define you as a cowboy if you do one of these 7 jobs in our industry. But on the other hand, there's a lot of people that are like, no, anybody can be a cowboy. I was like, okay, well, we're stretching the word. And it's fine. Either one is fine. But someone might say like, oh, he's a cowboy because he runs a ranch. And then the other person's like, well, I can be a cowboy too. I'm just an accountant. Okay, well, yeah, you can, but you're not. You're an accountant. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. So I don't know. I think that's why there's so much. I started a video series several years ago that I called You Ain't No Cowboy. Uh-huh. And it's probably the thing that gets the most feathers ruffled, because people just cannot stand that somebody would say they ain't no cowboy. Anyways, it's a funny word, but it all depends on, can you be a cowboy, Harrison? Yes, you can. Yes,
I like to hear that. I mean, I love the cowboy world, and that's why I want to dive into it. And, I'm from small town Iowa, Charles City, Iowa, 7,500 people, and around a lot of farmers. And then my violin teacher, she lived on a cattle ranch. Okay. So there's farmers, there's people who have cattle ranches. And then I have these people in our town, and they call themselves rednecks. Okay. And then there's some people who they'll say they're a rancher or a cowboy. So in your own words, I'm really interested, because it seems like everyone, if you talk to city slickers, I also lived in New York City for a while, they just clump it all together. But how would you define specifically like a redneck in a cowboy, or are they one and the same?
Yeah, so I would consider myself a cowboy, and Earl Dibbles Jr. Are you familiar
Mhm.
with him? He
Yes.
would be a redneck. So he
Okay.
would call himself a country boy. And I guess what they are is they're different. We're all, everything you described is probably the Western industry, is what I would call it.
Hmm.
And so, um, yeah, I could see how the less you know about the industry, the more you lump them together. But
Exactly.
obviously, a farmer, he's going to be better at driving a tractor. That's literally his job. And so he's a farmer by definition because he plows a field and he plants the cotton and he harvests the wheat, whatever it is. The cowboy is going to be horseback and he is gathering cows. He's branding, he's stripping, weaning, he's doing all the things. Stripping is what you do when you sort calves off of cows so you can work the calves. So just to clarify, but regardless, a redneck is somebody who, maybe that person works in the oil field, but they're very blue collar
Hmm.
uh, and outside, and between that blue collar and their ear gets real red because they're outside all the time. Um, so they might have a big pickup. They're going to enjoy mudding and riding a four wheeler and shooting guns and driving on back roads and drinking beer and shooting spitting tobacco. Like that's like a typical redneck. So I don't call myself a redneck.
Hmm.
I very much appreciate rednecks. I very much also I would lump rednecks and country boys into the same category. I very much appreciate that culture. I get along with them. I've got a lot of friends that are rednecks and country boys. I fancy myself a cowboy, um, and definitely not a farmer. No offense to them, but I'm just not as good with a tractor. So, yeah, it's the less you know about the industry, the more you're going to lump us all in together.
Yeah, no, I think that was a great explanation, clarification, because there are a lot of people who they've just never heard anything about this world, and it's foreign to them. So I appreciate the explanation. So you're really known for your bull riding, and I'd like to understand, how did you first get into that? Where did that begin?
Yeah, you're right about that. I'm the world's greatest bull rider, and as I was telling you earlier, I invented riding bulls with one hand at the ripe old age of 9 years old. I took off on my own. I was no longer living at home, and I was just on to the next one. Living on the road, big added money bull riding. That's the name of the game for me. And yeah, I was making it rain. Like I was 90-point bull rides left and right, and it's just really too easy. But uh, my dad got me started, so I grew up in it. And my dad
Hmm.
was a roughie. And so when I say roughie, rodeo cowboys can be divided into two groups of people: roughies and timies. Rough stock would be the all the events where you've got bucking stock involved. So bareback riders, bronc riders, bull riders, and then you can also call like bull fighters, rough stock, and then pickup men.
Hmm.
So there's three events you can compete in, and there's two jobs you can do on the rough stock end of the arena. And usually they are different ends of the arena. You'll have buck and shoots on one end, and then you'll have the rope and box and the timed event on the other end. So team roping, calf roping, barrel racing, steer wrestling, and steer ropers. But that usually when they build an arena that's going
Hmm.
to host a rodeo, it will be separate ends of the arena. And what they
Okay.
do is they alternate events. So you show up at a rodeo, they're going to start with bareback riding, which is bucking horses. Then they're going to go down to calf roping and team roping. Then they're going to come down to saddle bronc. And then they're going to go back down here and do steer wrestling and barrel racing. And then they're going to end with bull riding. So they do that because, you're sorting stock and whatnot. And so you alternate to the different ends of the arena. Um, that's typically how a rodeo will go. Well, for me, I grew up on the rough stock end of the arena. My dad was a bronc
Hmm.
rider. He rode bulls some. He fought bulls. He was kind of a jack of all trades on the rough stock end. He could also team rope and ride a horse, and he had ranched a lot, and so like he knew about that other end. But I grew up getting on bulls, getting on bears, getting on broncs, fighting bulls, picking up. And that was kind of where we spent our time. So now, fast forward, I've got an arena of my own and buck and shoots. Well, I've also got a YouTube channel and an apparel line where we'll sell caps and t-shirts on rodeotime.com. So this warehouse I'm in my office in the warehouse. I have interns who will come work in the warehouse during the day, and in the evenings will buck, and they get to practice and learn. And so that's how I recruit workers to come be in this little bitty town out in the middle of West Texas.
Wow,
So
that's awesome.
it's a long
So
story, but I'm trying to give you the bird's eye view.
no, I think that's great. What you do is so dangerous. And so, like you said, you mentioned you have these interns coming in and you're teaching them how to bull ride, right? And ride broncs and the whole gamut. So who are these people that are coming in to study with you? And what are some of the dangers of your profession?
So most of the people that come here are trying to learn one of the two events, and that's bull riding or saddle bronc riding.
Okay.
For my setup, that's the easiest thing. I don't know. Those are the two most popular right now. And
Hmm.
so um, I've kind of always been in a position where I had a practice pen. Like as a rodeo cowboy, you want to have somewhere where you practice. And
Right.
with that practice pen, people are constantly getting newbies that want to learn. Hey, I want to try bull riding. And so I in college, and then thereafter, when I would posture myself in a place where I could have practice bulls and horses, along with that came my buddies that wanted to get on. And so it carried over when I started the apparel business and I needed hands to help me ship these t-shirts. They on rodeotime.com. They so I used this carrot, I guess, to lure in these 22-year-old kids that are wanting to learn to ride bulls and broncs. And so the dangers are with horses. That's probably the more dangerous to learn, to be honest, more dangerous than bulls because
Hmm.
horses are higher off the ground and they're running faster. So when you get bucked off of those, like you could be as high as the ceiling, but also going 12 miles an hour, forward. So just imagine getting dropped ceiling height and going through the air, and you can't really sometimes control how you land. Um, so buck and horse riders have the most danger. The bulls, the reason why they're not as dangerous to learn is because the bulls are easier to tone down. So I can find an old herd bull. He's not mean. He doesn't buck that hard. He just jumps and kicks a little bit, like maybe kicks this high off the ground. And that's where you can like get your nerves down. Like if you ever played football, imagine
Yep.
your very first JV football game where you just
Hmm.
black out. You don't imagine you can't even see the first play because everything's going so fast. And then compare that to your last game as a senior on varsity. You can read the defense, you can see this wide receiver, you can see this safety, you can see a blitz coming. And so that's what it's like in bull riding. So we get these easy bulls that are the risk is still there of injury, getting stepped on, getting hung up, but we mitigate that risk with the level of livestock they get on. And so by the time they're awake during the bull ride and they're not blacking out, then we turn up the bull power and slowly, like we bucked bulls today at lunch.
Hmm.
I snuck over there and I got a bull rider here. He's coming along really well. And put him on just a really good bull. It's not a beginner bull, but he just good practice and it's all about repetition from there. You get your set of fundamentals, you learn your fundamentals, you get where you can think during that 8 seconds, and then you just nod your head as many times as possible. So to answer your last question, there's all kinds of injuries that can happen when you're flying through the air or about to get stepped on, collarbones, concussions, shoulders dislocating, knees getting blown out. I've had a guy have a few guys break legs, break ankles, break a jaw, um, broken fingers. Yeah, me personally, I've broke my collarbone 3 times. I've dislocated my shoulder 5 times. I've had two back surgeries. I've broken multiple fingers. I've had a dozen concussions or so. Uh, the head injuries are probably the more serious and potentially long term. You know, you can fix a broken bone like that.
Hmm.
Um, the back is something not to mess with, but it is super dangerous. But when you're in those learning stages, there's ways to mitigate the risk.
It's interesting. So with your own personal experiences, of breaking these bones, like what's been the hardest to come back from?
The back surgeries. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's just when you go to messing with those discs and trying to fix a disc, there's just no good plan of what's going to happen. The recovery is just different every time. If you break a bone, they make sure it's in line, and then it usually, typically, there's a higher percentage of a bone just healing the way it should. But like my back has been probably the hardest to come back from. Um, I had a collarbone. I broke a collarbone, and then it came back, and it was what's called a non-union. So like I could use it,
Hmm.
but there was just so much scar tissue holding those bones. There was literally half an inch of separation between them. But I didn't know it. I just thought I was healed because I could do this. Well, I had no power in it because that it's just scar tissue holding it. It's called the non-union, and like I was trying to work out, and I'm like getting on horses but falling off because like my arm isn't working. Anyways, had to go break that up and had the collarbone surgery. Uh, the shoulder deal, had to have a shoulder surgery because of the five dislocations. Like it's just kind of comes with the territory, unfortunately. And it's something that people don't. When you're young, you just kind of ignore that that's going to happen.
Hmm.
And now that I'm old, like I'm not going to betray a younger me and say that it wasn't worth it because I know how much I love it.
Hmm. So, I mean, you have to be incredibly passionate. And it seems like
Mm.
anyone I've come across who's, into rodeo and bull riding and all this stuff, it's a certain mentality. Like you guys are, you have a thick skin, but encouraging someone to go into it, I mean, how do you balance like
I
this
don't.
is really dangerous? So you don't
I,
encourage anyone to go into
no,
it.
not at all. I try to
I
talk
mean,
people out of it. Yeah, why
yeah,
would you
really.
encourage somebody to do something that dangerous? You could die. I'm not
Yeah,
going to try to encourage somebody to
absolutely.
do something they could die doing. Tell
No.
you to go diving with
Oh, there you
sharks. I'm
go.
not going to tell you to ride a bull either. If you
Hmm.
come to me and you're like, I gotta ride a bull, I'm like, okay, well, you could die. You shouldn't. And you're like, no, 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 no. I'm gonna ride a bull, whether it's with you or this guy. Like, I've got to do it. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, then I'll help you, but I don't think you should do this. That's my
Right.
advice. Just because I mean, it's you could die, or you could end up in a wheelchair.
Hmm. Oh, it's
Because
just so.
there's those people that you kind of think on a 10,000 foot bird's eye view, you're thinking like, oh, okay, well, I could die, but worst case, I break an arm. No, no, no. Somewhere in between, like you could break an arm, you could wind up paralyzed, or you could die.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, I would never encourage someone to do this. I like dealing with the people that like they're pot committed, they burnt the boats. Like if I don't help them, they're gonna go get help somewhere else.
Hmm. So they have to just be totally passionate, gun ho, like I'm gonna do this, and you're like, okay, I'll help to
Mhm.
mitigate the risk as much as possible, but they know what they're getting themselves into.
Like I'm probably going to bring on another intern. I'm going to call him today after this actually. And he has been blowing me up. He's applied for an internship before. He he texts me, he Snapchats me, he DMs me on Instagram, he DMs me on my backup Instagram. He sent emails, and I don't even know how he got my number, but like I don't the point is like if this dude doesn't come here, then maybe he goes, he's pretty committed.
Hmm.
And that's the kind of like passion where all right, I'll help you. And then when I do help him, I'm going to get him started on the most elementary type bulls and horses that I can because I understand what it's like to start because I've done that.
Hmm.
Um, there's still risks, but much lower risks.
Yeah.
But you have to have I think I haven't even read the book, but they say that book, Wild at Heart, I hear about it so much. Everybody says like the main premise of it is that every man has a fight to fight, and um, there's something about when you get in the buck and shoot and this animal, like when the gate opens, this animal is going to buck. And if he doesn't, then you get a re-ride. So you'll have to get on, meaning the point is like you're going to be met with a fight when you nod your head. And sometimes in the beginning, you're a little oblivious to the dangers,
Hmm.
or maybe you know the dangers, whether it's the first bull or when you learn the dangers down the road. Eventually, people are met with fear of what could happen. And it's fear of potential death or harm to your body. And there comes a point where you have to accept that and execute a set of fundamentals that are counterintuitive. And if you can do that, then you can successfully ride that animal and you overcome that fight. You win that fight. And so there's a high that you experience when all that comes to fruition. And nothing compares to it. And that's how
Really?
guys get addicted to rodeo. And so, what I mean by the counterintuitive fundamentals, bull riding, for instance, this bull is going to jump forward and then kick.
Hmm.
And then he lands and he jumps forward and he kicks. Well, one of the reasons that a mechanical bull is worthless is because that mechanical bull is sitting on a piece of pipe and it'll kick and turn, but it's not going forward. The whole thing about bull riding is counterbalancing the forward motion. Because if you're sitting on a bull and he jumps forward, if you just sit flat, it rolls you back. Well, then when he kicks, he slams you forward. So what
Hmm.
you've got to do when he jumps forward is you've got to get out over the front. You've got to drive over the top of his head. You go to the front, as we call it. But if he's got these big horns and that's where his head is, you're not going to want to get out over the front of him during this bull ride. Your intuition is telling you to get back. Well, that's what gets you bucked off. So the fundamentals of bull riding, to make a long story short, the fundamentals of bull riding are counterintuitive. If you don't have control of your emotions, you will not be able to counter your intuition.
Hmm.
If you
Wow.
do, if you've got your fear in check, I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but you got it in check. Now all of a sudden you're going to be able to execute those fundamentals in the midst of your intuition.
Wow. So when you're training someone, like, how long are they first on a bull? Like their first time, like how long do they last?
I got a bull, I call him birthday cake, and
Okay. Birthday cake.
he's like a bucket list bull, meaning like if somebody's going to ever I don't let anybody do this, but if I have a friend and they're like, I just want to get on one bull, I'm gonna put
Hmm.
him on this one. The risks are it'd be like falling off a bicycle.
Okay.
You could get seriously hurt falling off a bike. I
Yeah.
mean, you could
Yeah.
there is a world where you hit your head in a certain way if you fall off a bike, but that's about like this bull. He just very slow. Like you can say, I got on a bull after you get on him. The pictures and video will not be very glamorous, but so that's where I start, guys. No matter
Okay.
what, everybody gets on him first. And then it's like, are you going to be able to, are you just so overcome with fear that you won't be able to execute the fundamentals? Um, because you might think you want to be a bull rider and then you get on even birthday cake and you're like, all right, this is for the birds. I can't do it.
Really? Have you had people
But
who are just like, I can't do it?
yes, yeah. Yeah, I had one kid, he was 19, came out of Houston. He had claimed he was a bull rider. And this joker got down in the chute and just froze. And it pissed me off. The only reason it pissed me off was because he was talking this game. Well,
Mm-hmm.
he gets down in the chute, and it's a herd bull, very similar to birthday cake. And this joke, and he knows that, and he is frozen with fear. And I was so mad. I was cussing. I said, "Get out of that buck and shoot right now," because the buck and shoot's dangerous. arguably one of the most dangerous places you can be in the arena is in the buck and shoot. Because you're just trapped in a steel cage. If they flip
Right.
over, if they
Yeah.
kick, your leg, your arms, everything, out in the arena is where you want to be. And anyways, that one that one's just memorable because he had been bragging about being a bull rider. And anyway, the
Karma.
saying around here is do it, then talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. So with Rodeo Time, so how did this come into fruition? And I mean, you started with the bull riding and your background and your lifestyle, but how did it like become like a life of its own? And where did like the social media and all of that come into play? How did that come to
I've
be?
always been the class clown. I've always been one to, I love making people laugh.
Hmm.
And, I was prank calling people for a few years. And then in 2013, July 1st, 2013, so I don't know when this releases, but could be right on the nose of 12 years ago, um, we made our first YouTube video. And slowly, a week or two, month goes by, I made another one. A couple months goes by, I made another one. And then, 2013, Western industry is always several years behind mainstream. So YouTube, social media had begun to be a thing in mainstream, and
Hmm.
Western industry is a little behind. Well, I was kind of the first on the scene in our industry when it comes to ranching and rodeo. And so around that time, we just started putting out more and more content. There'd be people put out a video here or there, but nobody was doing it consistently. And I've always had kind of entrepreneurial tendencies.
Hmm.
A lot of it, my granddad was an entrepreneur, my dad on my mom's side, but then my dad, he was a cowboy. And so the two kind of came together for me. A lot of my desire to be an entrepreneur was that it gave me the freedom to rodeo. It was never and never has, and up to this point at least, has never been about my desire to be lazy.
Hmm.
I'm usually up at 4:30 every day, even though I don't have a boss. My point is, I wanted the freedom to go to rodeos, and so but I love it all though. So there's not really, I never forced anything. I made videos for 2 or 3 years before I ever monetized Facebook. I didn't even, I mean, I'm sorry, YouTube. Like
Hmm.
I didn't monetize a YouTube video until like 2017 or
Oh,
16,
wow. Okay.
a long time.
Yeah.
My point is like I was just making videos because I enjoy making people laugh. Now I had the apparel line at the end of 13, and
Hmm.
so I would wear, a rodeo time cap or what have you. That's available on rodeotime.com. But my drive, and I love to make people laugh. So I love to rodeo. I was an entrepreneur. I was a class clown. Um, I had done some public speaking in high school and college, so like I wasn't afraid of the camera. And the Lord put everything in place, and even the people. My college roommate is now my lawyer. Um, my warehouse manager is now like one of my family best friends. Like just all the people that came into my life, and the attributes of my life, even my childhood, unbeknownst to me at the time, were setting me up to do this right now and what I'm doing today. Um, and there's not been one day in these 12 years that I've taken it for granted, and so I mean, it was all in God's plan, 100%.
Well, I think it's amazing when we just are open to God's call and just see, what He has in store for us. It's the greatest ride of all time. I think God has a great plan and we can't really plan it ourselves, but the surprises are along the way are kind of what makes life great. When
Hmm.
you're just open to it. And it's just taken on a life of its own. And, it's going to be exciting, like 10 years from now, what God has planned for, what you're doing in rodeo time and all the great things. Who knows? Maybe you'll have some other adventures that come along the way and present themselves because this was a fast moving world.
I'm open for them. I'm open for anything God has in store. It is interesting. I hadn't thought about this, but like looking back in college and early days, maybe I had made a video, but I, no, I hadn't made videos yet when I first thought this, but there were a lot of people going on missions. And I'm not saying I wouldn't go on a mission to another country at all,
Hmm.
but I didn't feel an intense desire to just go and be somewhere. I would immediately follow with, I really feel like my ministry is in the rodeo arena.
Hmm.
But this is before any of the videos. And I'm just now remembering this thought in terms of like my ministry. But um, I didn't know how, but at bare minimum, I wanted to share the word behind the shoots and my traveling partners and belly to belly and shoulder to shoulder, just whoever was around me. I wanted to be a light in a dark world. But now, fast forward, um, I don't go to near as many rodeos as I make videos. And so I'm not an online preacher at all. I, I do like to respect the fact and admit the fact that God made me a comedian in the rodeo world, and I'm a Christian that gets to share the word. One person described me, I don't know how I feel about this, but he said, man, he kind of got to know me, and he said, you're not a wolf in sheep's clothing. You're a sheep in wolf's clothing. And I thought that was interesting. And I think he didn't mean it to be too deep, other than like I come across as this loud and boisterous and outgoing and party animal. But I don't drink and I'm usually in bed by 9. And I do have a ministry with what I'm doing. And that's what he was referring to, is almost just like I'm in this world that sometimes the culture is a little bit, and I'm not trying to toot my own horn. If you got to know me in terms of being a Christian, you'd be very underwhelmed. I promise you. But that doesn't mean I can't have a ministry
Right.
and God can't use me like He did David. So, and not trying to compare myself to him. I'm just saying we all know his faults. But regardless, the point is, I've very much enjoyed just like playing everything by ear, and whatever God has for me next, I'm super excited about. Um, it's been it's been funny too that like being the guy that brags about being the world's greatest bull rider, like it's been so interesting to look back and see like how the Lord has really spoke to me about pride and humility. And so that's just kind of a fun twist on my own walk, like the things that I've learned and the way that I'm able to make people laugh in videos is secretly this bigger issue that, or not so secretly,
Hmm.
that the Lord and I have a conversation on just about every day.
Well, I think it's interesting that you bring the faith aspect into it because, a lot of people who have a big platform like yourself, it's kind of a touchy subject, right? Yeah, they may be a Christian, but to put themselves out there and say, no, this is really who I am. And it sounds like that's your walk is God gave you rodeo and you want to like glorify him through what you're doing. So I'm kind of interested in your own words, how would you define your mission with everything that you do? What is your mission?
Um, I want to be a light in a dark world. I want to be someone that people can. I was talking to my preacher yesterday. I put him on the podcast every now and then just to kind of, talk about old times and answer some of the hard questions. But, um, depending on where my priorities are and when they're out of line that day, sometimes my mission is to run a successful company.
Hmm.
Uh, but when I get down to the core of it, my mission is to build up those around me and be a servant, be a glimpse of what Jesus's love can look like. Unfortunately, I don't think that's how those around me would describe me, but that is something that I'm trying to do. So,
Well, it's a daily walk, and we have to wake up in the morning and choose to follow him, and it's not, it's probably what I've said this to many people. Being a Christian is probably like one of the hardest things you can do in your life, you know,
Yeah,
but anything that comes with resistance is great. You know, that's where
right.
greatness and growth comes from, is doing the hard things day in, day out. And that's
Yeah,
where you grow as a person. And, you know, life's a roller coaster, but it's totally worth it. And you'll see in the trend, you know, with my podcast, I bring on people of all walks of life, people who don't believe in God and people who believe in God. And it's so cool when, you know, people are open to talk about it. And I have that Christian background, because I think we might, you know, even if it's just one person who hears, oh, you know, I grew up in the cowboy background, but I maybe didn't have the Christian aspect of it. But then when they see a Dale Brisby and they see, wow, he's having a lot of fun, doing a lot of cool things. But like you said, you are directing your choices in a certain way, maybe that's against the fray, you know? Like that's
hmm
really inspiring. So I mean, I want to thank you for being open about that, because I think it has a bigger impact than maybe you even realize, or maybe you do, but it's huge. It really is.
No, I mean, occasionally I'll go to events where I'll have a booth or I do an appearance and I get to see people, um, face to face. And those are good for me sometimes because it shows and reminds me that all these views and subscribers and followers are real people.
Mhm.
Uh, I didn't buy my followers like I know, you can do. Like it's no, like they're real individuals watching and listening. And so when I'm out here at the ranch and miles from town, like sometimes you forget that. And um, it's more just like we made this video that made the people in the arena laugh. And so we put the video out. And then, so anyhow, it is, sometimes it's fun to get to see and hear the effect that, it has on people, but I try not to drink my own Kool-Aid either.
No, I think that's a good way to go about it and keep yourself humble. But it's like I said, it's just so cool, all the amazing things that you're doing, and you know, following your passion, but having God, you know, helping you along the way too. I think, you know, props to you. I love it. I really love it.
No, I
Um,
appreciate it.
yeah, no, definitely, definitely. I I know that you also have a lot of other interest outside of bull riding and everything. You're an outdoor man. I remember hearing in an interview that you were doing the carnivore diet. Are you still doing any of that? The carnivore diet
Yeah,
and
for the most part. If one of my, I cheated on it a couple times this week, but we were out in the middle of nowhere and it was late at night, so I did get me a burger. But for the most part, today I've had eggs and sausage for breakfast with some bacon, cheese, and then for lunch I had some ground beef with some cheese on it. So like and then water and an energy drink. So I don't have, yeah, like day to day, day in day out. I'm not having chips, bread, sugar, fried foods like that kind of stuff. I do have to have some fruit.
Mhm.
So strict carnivore. I think people maybe don't eat fruit, but I do just because it does give you that quick burst of energy. So milk, honey, eggs, cheese, meat, and a lot of fruit is that's primarily my diet. I'd say like if you spent 21 days with me, maybe one day you might catch me cheating or something, but them other 20, I'm pretty strict.
and how long have you done this?
3 years.
3 years. Now, one
Yeah.
of the biggest speakers for this is Jordan Peterson. Was that kind of when you heard? Did you hear
Yeah,
him
that was
talk
one of
about
them.
it?
So like he and his daughter, I don't know if they're still on it, but they're on what's called the lion diet.
I
And
think she is still on it. Yeah,
yeah, and she does that because she's got an autoimmune disease.
right.
And if she has anything other than beef, salt, or water, it flares up
It's
those issues.
crazy.
And so she's kind of got a little bit of that's an extreme version of carnivore. The point, the reason that was influential on me was because it made me realize, like, oh, you don't have to have sides. Not only is she surviving, but it's curing something. Like,
Yeah.
wait a second, protein isn't an enemy. Uh, but I'm
Our
not
whole
trying to tell
full
people.
pyramid is flipped upside down. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not what they were telling us years ago.
One of the things I heard on her podcast once was that somebody went on there and said a doctor said 50% of the people that die of a heart attack did not have high cholesterol. So
What?
50% of the people that die of a heart attack do have high cholesterol.
Yeah.
But the other half of the people that die of a heart attack or heart disease
Hmm.
don't have high cholesterol. So my dad, who died of a heart attack, maybe his cholesterol was high, but it may not have been also. There's a 50-50 chance that it wasn't high.
Hmm.
That's what I heard someone say to her. Now, that led me down. So I don't remember if that, I don't know if that's actually a fact. Like I'll say that right now.
Okay.
But it did lead me to hear and confirm that high cholesterol leading to heart disease is a theory. It's not a
Hmm.
fact. It's not
Sure.
a fact. That I have doubled back and researched. High cholesterol it's a theory that high cholesterol leads to heart disease. It's not a fact. And I just always thought it was a fact.
Right.
And so
Same.
to be honest, like even as a cowboy and a guy that owns cows, I tried to limit red meat. And so I'm not trying to tell you red meat, I don't know what it does or doesn't do, but I do know that the people that demonize it, they don't know any more than I do. Like they're just saying that. That's a theory. They have a theory that red meat is bad for you. And what my theory is that red meat is more healthy than Fruit Loops or Fruity Pebbles um, or Lucky Charms. That's
I'm
what
with
I.
you there. I'm with you there.
If you think that Frosted Flakes are more healthy than red meat, then we just disagree on this issue, and I'm going to eat the steak.
I think a lot of people who have common sense can, see through the lies that we've been told for so long. And it'll be interesting, with people like, RFK Jr. getting all these dyes and stuff and crap out of our food. Hopefully we're going to go in the right direction. And, you might have people eating more of a carnivore, at least, more, I guess, organic food, just your basic fruits, vegetables, and meat. So overall, when you started this diet, from beginning to end, like what have been like the positive aspects you've seen? And are there any negatives?
Well, so like when I first started it, I didn't eat the fruit.
Right.
And at first that wasn't a big issue, but like I began to like, I didn't have a lot of fat to lose, but once I lost it, my energy level cratered. And so that's when
Mhm.
I realized like, because carbs, bread, tortillas, chips, like all those things, they turn to sugar and that they'll give you energy because they turn to sugar. But the problem is there's just so much of it, it gets stored as fat. And so regardless, like a berry, like it'll burn off quicker, but it
Right.
does the same thing. And so it's a carb. So is honey, regardless, whatever. I didn't realize all these things. I just knew I liked tortillas. And so I would eat them. But the point is, so like when I first got on it, I was like super strict. All my fat's gone in about 5 weeks, and my energy is plummeting. So I added fruit, and it was like, oh, this is how I'm going to be able to make it work. And so since then, that's pretty much been my diet. Yes, occasionally at the NFR in December, like I'm going to smoke a pizza. The other night, when, like I did have a burger, occasionally chocolate chip cookies, like I'll still indulge here and there. But for the most part, now I will say what has been, I'm gonna get real personal here, so hopefully you
That's
don't
okay. It's
clip this.
unfiltered, whatever you want to say.
Well, hopefully somebody doesn't clip this, and it's just a clip of Dale Brisby talking about what he does in the restroom. But like prior,
I'll tell the guys to be respectful.
but prior to carnivore, like I had to have fiber drinks, I had to have probiotics to make things normal.
Really?
I mean, like it led to like I had issues, like
Wow.
had to have surgery kind of issues. So I start carnivore and I look up and I'm like, oh man, like I'm like a once a day guy and it's like so normal. and I had zero issues when it comes to going into the restroom. And matter of fact, like to get even more personal, like I used to be the guy as a comedian. I had no issue being the guy that could fart on command. Like that was just like it was one of the jokes in my arsenal. I would be able to time it and somebody would say something and then about that time. And now, like if I've been strict carnivore, like I do not have gas. I don't. If I cheat, it pops up. Like that burger messed me up. I had a night before last, I had a burger. So yesterday I had to sit down 3 times. I was farting all day. I was farting all day today. But if I've been on carnivore, I'm telling you, like it's just you don't need the fiber is for all the crap you eat.
Right. It is. Move it through the
You have
system.
that fiber because you've been eating crap. And so that's been the biggest change for me that I can notice. It's been 3 years, so I don't really, I do feel like I've been less tired overall,
Yeah.
but it's hard for me to remember how I felt 3 years ago at 3 p.m. But
Sure.
I can tell you for sure I've got less doctor's appointments on that thing.
Wow. Yeah, no, I've been walking the line of, I hear so many people like the Petersons and others, and now yourself saying, yeah, I'm doing carnivore. And, Joe Rogan, I think Rogan still does it um, here and there, I think. So I don't know, maybe I think I can try anything for like 30 days. So maybe I'll say 1 month. I'm going to
And
try it.
I would encourage you to do longer than that because like it takes not be it'll be effective in 30 days. I
Yeah.
mean, you can look at a set of weights and you'll get muscle on the carnivore diet. If you exercise at all, like the weight will fall off. But 30 days is fine. Do what you want. But
Yeah.
it took me all of like 3 months to be able to walk by certain breads, cookies, tortillas, and and also the other thing about where I'm at on it is I'm not like staunchly against all vegetables.
hmm
Most really strict carnivore people, they it's pretty much unanimous that like kale and spinach are just like not what they're cracked up to be.
Yeah.
And there's some other vegetables like that that have, and I don't know a lot about it, but um, my whole deal is just like I'm not against it. I just don't have to have it. Like if there's some jalapenos in something or mushrooms or some asparagus, I'm fine. Whatever, I'll eat it. But
Yeah.
I'm not staunchly against it. But like I don't have to have a salad. No, just if I go to a restaurant, I just want the steak with some butter. That's it.
That sounds good. I'm glad that a good
And
steak
the
is
other,
my favorite food.
it does not get old either.
Yeah. No, no.
You will not get tired of steak, which is to me is like that's another just indicator of like what our bodies are supposed to eat and supposed to have. Like if you have, certain foods every day, like we all know we've been through phases and we've had our Subway era
Oh,
or
yeah.
whatever it is, Taco John's or whatever you're getting, like you're just like, dude, I can't eat that anymore. And that is not the case with steak. Not for
Oof.
me at least. I could eat it 3 meals a day every day.
Wow. Honestly, I
I
think I'm gonna have a
promise.
steak tonight.
I probably sound like a psychopath, but that's just my life.
Well, but you're not the only one. It's become more than just like a fad. Like carnivore, you're seeing a lot of people do it, and I think there's going to be more studies on it. I just think that we are in a culture, with the pharmaceutical companies, the food companies, and everyone just throwing all these lies because of control, power, and money, right? They
Mhm.
just they have totally flipped the system. And we like before, like what 1970 you you'd walk down the street and you weren't seeing the obesity crisis that is
Right.
today. It's like over 50% of kids in the classroom. When I go to grade school, the grade schools and visit, like I'm amazed at what what kids look like, honestly. And it's sad,
Yeah.
but it's honestly what's in our food and stuff. Now, I also mentioned you have some other interest, and one thing that I would like to touch on in the time I have, it's because I have my own bucket list, and one thing that I really want to do is noodling catfish. Do you still do
Mm.
this?
Yeah, I love it. It's so fun. I haven't got to go this year. I usually go with a friend of mine, Hannah Barron,
Oh
and her
yeah.
dad,
Yep.
Jeff Barron. Uh, they weren't the first people to catfish, but they dang sure made it popular.
Oh,
And
I mean,
I mean,
that's where I
it
learned
has
about it.
it has blown up on, and I heard about it like as a kid. I would just like hear people say they had done it. And she was the first person I saw on the internet do it. And so um, both of us are YouTubers, and I followed her. I would comment. We got to be friends. They invited me out, and so usually every summer I'll go over there.
Hmm.
This would have been like maybe my sixth summer or something like that to go over, but Jeff got hurt his hamstring, and we're not gonna be able to make it before the season plays out. But yeah, usually I try to make a trip a summer over there to Noodle. It's super fun. It's a fun way to fish, and especially when you're impatient like I am, got ADD, like get in the water, move around, and jump in there and grab them. But yeah, you get in waist deep water. There's some states you can't put out boxes, but in Alabama, you can, and so you'll get in waist deep water. They'll put a box out, and the females come in and lay eggs, and then the
Hmm.
males will come in and protect the eggs, and sometimes a female will protect it. But uh, when you put your arm in that box, they'll feel you in there, and
Hmm.
they bite it. Well, then when they bite it, you grab the bottom jaw, you bring them out, you run your hand in their mouth past the gill plate and pull those out, and that's how you'll catch the catfish. Females usually throw back. Um, And I mean, you all you got to do is keep one or two to have enough food for a week. And so, but kind of like any other fishing trip, you'll catch a dozen and throw them all back, or maybe keep one or something.
What's the biggest that you've caught yourself?
40, 40 pounds.
40?
Yeah,
My
Hannah's caught a
gosh.
75 pounder.
75-pound
Yeah,
catfish? That's
yeah,
like a monster. It's one of those
that's a
river
monster.
monsters.
Yeah, I mean, she only weighs $120, so like more than half of what she weighs. Yeah, it's crazy.
And then it's like muddy water for the most part too, right? And you're like trying to like find, the gill and everything under the water.
Yeah, it's bananas. But Jeff, he's usually over my shoulder. I don't know. I'm kind of a guided hunt kind of guy,
Yeah.
and I don't really unapologetically like I'm a cowboy. So if I go on a fishing trip or a hunting trip, I don't mind taking a guide. I don't have to go navigate all that by myself.
Hmm. I
So
love that. That is so much fun. And see, I did hunting growing up, but I'm a huge fisherman and, bass fishing and just all of that. That's like totally my bread and butter doing that. And then casting
yeah,
for large muskie. And then, I even growing up, I had a friend, we would do bow fishing, where you shoot like large carp
yeah,
and stuff. And so that,
yep,
that's a blast. But like I said, on my bucket list, I gotta do the noodling because it just, oh man, that has to be exhilarating. Probably
yeah,
not as exhilarating as bull riding, but oh my gosh,
right. Yeah, I mean
that's
it's that the first one of the day is really nerve-wracking. And
it's gonna bite you.
yeah, the first one of the day really gets you, but the second one and the third one and all that after, those are the ones that you're just like, oh, okay, I got you.
Oh,
So
that's cool. Oh, I love it. Well, thanks for giving us a little insight into, one of your outside interests.
yeah,
We're coming to the end of the podcast, and so one of the last questions I have for you is, just what do you see for the future for, all of your endeavors that you're trying to do? Like, what do you have on the horizon, maybe in the coming year?
man, there's not really anything specific.
Hmm.
I've got some cool collaborations. There's a couple of movie cameos that are going to be neat.
Oh, sweet.
Um, it's really just more of the same thing.
And that's okay.
Whether you're a YouTuber or that accountant or a plumber or a cowboy, there's, the thing looking too far into the future can be like really daunting and worrisome. For
Hmm.
me right now and all of us, it's like, dang, World War III, what's going to happen? But
Yeah.
um,
Well, that's a whole
so
topic in itself.
yeah, God tells us, he talks a lot about man's plans, and essentially like trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him and he will make your path straight. And
Proverbs
right now,
3:5-6. I love
yeah,
that.
right now that's my jam. And but as a CEO of a I'm a YouTuber, I've got an apparel line. Like, what does that company look like in the midst of a war? And I don't know, but I realize beyond that, like I'm in God's hands, and that's where I put my trust every day. So I I think that God rewards God will. The older we get, I think at a certain age, you begin to realize somewhere around 18, 19, you will begin to realize and appreciate it later on that a blessing in life may not be a fish, but a fishing pole. It's not necessarily a bag of money, but it's an opportunity to make money. And so I think that God blesses us with opportunities. The problem is when they're in front of us, they're not opportunities, they're risks. Once you take that risk and you're successful and you look back on it, you look back and realize it was an opportunity. And so my prayer is that I can see an opportunity even when it's a risk, and that hard work will never be an issue. So I don't want something to not work because I didn't work. And that's my vision for the next year is to work my tail off, to take advantage of opportunities, even when they look like risks, and to trust in God. So I don't have a lot of goals set. And I think that for me, I feel like I'm limiting God. I would love for a Christian brother to come in and tell me, like, no, it's okay to set a goal for this reason, whatever. But my point in saying all that is, yeah, I don't know what the next year looks like, but I know today I'm trusting in God and I'm just going to keep moving forward according to his plan.
Amen. No, I love that. And I will continue to pray for you in your
Please
ministry and
do.
just,
Please
yeah,
do.
I mean, I think prayer is one of the most important things we have. And I love what you're doing to just, stay strong day by day.
Yes, sir.
You got it. And, God, Proverbs 3:5-6, like you pointed out, that's actually my favorite Bible verse. So I think that's, that's
Yeah.
so cool that you stated that too, because that's what I try to remind myself every day of, just trusting in God's plan and just giving up our own desires for what He has in store for us. So,
Yes, sir.
thank you for saying that. Okay, so the way I end every podcast is we do a 1-minute rapid fire round of questions. Is Dale Brisby ready for this?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, saddle up. Here we go. Okay, so I have my timer. Ready?
Yep.
Okay. Boots or Spurs?
Boots.
Um, Go to pre-ride snack.
Oh, yeah, some fruit, just something. Yeah, strawberry and a banana.
Do you have a favorite cowboy hat brand?
American hat, baby, because I'm an American.
Dream guest to come to the ranch.
Theo Vaughn.
Oh, that'd be awesome. What's the best country song of all time or your favorite?
If I Don't Call by Leroy Gibbons.
Amen. Okay. Well, folks, that's where today's episode with Dale Brisby cuts off. Unfortunately, we had a bit of a Zoom crash right in the middle of the rapid fire round, but I was able to connect with Dale right after by phone to thank him. And he said he had a great time on the podcast. So, Dale, huge thanks for joining me and bringing your signature energy to the Sheckler Spotlight. And to all our listeners, thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time.
Thanks for listening to the Sheckler Spotlight with your host, Harrison Sheckler. If you've enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, follow, and share the show with a friend. New conversations drop regularly, so stay tuned. And thanks again for listening and being a part of the journey. Follow Harrison Sheckler on social media and visit harrisonsheckler.com to learn more.